And welcome to Healthy Living. My name is Dr. Donald Pelto, and I have Mr. Tony Post here today. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks, Don. Great to be here.
Yeah, and we were chatting a little bit before, and we're kind of talking. You've kind of gone through the gamut. You're a big runner and kind of worked with shoes. That's how we kind of got to know each other.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, if you could talk to yourself 30 years ago, what would you tell yourself in terms of helping you with your health and staying active and staying healthy and in good shape and things like that?
That's a great question, but I think one of the things that I do differently today than maybe 30 years ago is I probably overtrained a lot in my youth, and I, pushed too hard and was probably injured more often than I should have been.
Yeah.
I was, trying to break through as a runner, as you mentioned, but I've been active in a lot of different sports and athletics my whole life. And I'd always been pretty competitive. And to get good at something, there's always just been this urge to, put everything into it. And sometimes, you need a little more balance in your life. And so that's what I would probably advise myself is to, take more of a long-term approach and do a variety of things and introduce a little more balance into your life.
Yeah. Tony, we recently did a chi running workshop. I don't know if you're familiar with chi running.
Sure. Yep. Of course.
Yeah. And that one of the premises is that you kind of run slow to run fast. You learn. It's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, the question is really, what do you want in your life? What are the goals that you have? Is your goal to become a competitive runner? Is your goal to be healthy and live a long life and have a good health span? So, 1/10 of the population is probably going to be really trying to compete. And then, more people are just trying to get healthy, enjoy life. And then there are some people that fall kind of maybe somewhere in between. They want to improve and are willing to push themselves a little bit more to see what they can do, but they realize that they're probably not going to be in Tokyo in a couple of weeks.
And what have you learned over the years in terms of, let's say, workout life balance? Because I remember talking to my partner here, Dr. Feldman, when he's training for a lot of these things, there's not really much balance there. And did you go through that, or do you have any tips for people that are wanting to kind of start exercising? For the majority, they might not be doing anything. How do you get going? What's the best way to get going and do that?
Yeah, so I always had a saying, even elite athletes talk about this from time to time. A big part of it is just getting out the door. It's just getting started, just get your body moving, and I think it's important to listen to your body. Another thing we used to do is, Tuesday nights we're going to be speed workout, and there are days when you just don't feel fast or you don't feel ready for that. And I think today, I would probably be more flexible with myself and try to modify. And on days that you feel great, you feel strong, maybe push yourself a little more. And if you, don't really feel it that day, it's okay to go easy or even take a day off. And I think that, rest and getting good sleep and, having a good diet and having a comfortable lifestyle, all those things are probably almost as important to, your well-being as exercise.
Yeah. Have you personally found any really good, I know I have some certain sleep habits that I have, certain eating habits that help me I just feel better, frankly. Do you have any like night cover or things in your eyes or anything that you found that really, music or sounds or anything that you help with sleep and eating and things like that?
Yeah. So that's probably one of my weakest things is I've really tried to work out the last few years is trying to improve my sleep patterns. And I think one of the things that just to get on a rhythm. So in my work, the other problem is sometimes you're traveling a lot and you're in different time zones and it's hard to adjust. So one of the things I do when I live on the East Coast and if I'm going to the West Coast is I try not to adjust my bedtime or wake up schedule all that much. I try not to adjust my, it's hard because you have to have dinner with people and things like that. But I try not to allow my schedule to get completely thrown off and then have to get back on. So just trying to stay in a natural rhythm. And for me, and this may not be for everybody, but to get some exercise every day always helps. And then the other thing is I've tried to do more, I was a rhetoric and writing and an English major in college and used to read a lot. And then I kind of, you have kids, you raise a family, you kind of get out of all those habits. My kids are grown, and I just try to read a little bit more, especially before I go to bed. And I feel like that kind of calms me down and puts me in a better place rather than, I still watch TV, of course, like a lot of people, but, maybe as I get closer to that bedtime, all of the lights are coming down in the house, and, maybe I read for a half hour or something like that. And I think that just puts me in a better state of mind for sleeping. But I have a long way to go. I've listened to all those Matthew Walker, you probably know him, the sleep scientist out at Berkeley. I've listened to a lot of his podcasts and, read some of his book and heard some of his advice, which has been helpful. But I've got a lot of work I could still do there to improve.
I think we all have a lot of work. We're just working on it. I think caffeine for me is a big thing. I stay away from caffeine usually after about now 1 p.m. or so. Yeah. It just affects me too much. I just get too.
That's true. And I don't really, I suppose there are times when I'll have chocolate or something that, probably have some caffeine in it in the evening. And so I'm guilty of that probably, but I don't really drink coffee after 8 o'clock in the morning. So that part is, easier for me. I kind of consider that more of a morning activity.
Now, do you have any, I know there's this good book I read recently called The Miracle Morning, and it talks about like having, and there's the other one, Atomic Habits, where it talks about these like routines in the morning that help with health. I'll tell you mine, and I don't know if you have one. So mine is like, I do a cold shower for like 2 minutes.
Yeah. You mentioned that. I don't know if I could do that, especially right off the bat in the morning.
Yeah, it takes practice. But they say it's supposed to do. I'm like using my body as a test kitchen. So I do that. Then I do like 10 minutes of deep breathing, and then what I do, like similar to you, I read for like 10 pages in like a Norman Vincent Peale book or a positive, like a mindset book. Yeah. It just starts my day nice. I like those habits, like for
That's great. That's really great that you do that. The cold shower thing for me just isn't comfortable unless, so as we're speaking, of course, it's July 14th or something. So it's summertime. If I've been outside and done a really kind of hot workout, or today I was on the Peloton bike and it was a pretty intense interval workout. So my body temperature was really high. So, then it's really comfortable to take a cold shower. I don't finish cold. I start cold and then kind of finish more in a, comfortable natural temperature, but it helps kind of bring my body temperature down. And maybe that's, I don't know. I just do it to help me cool off, but maybe it's got some other benefits.
They say there's some other, like whatever, they say it causes vasoconstriction, makes your blood vessels get smaller, and it kind of makes you be hyper present. And so there's certain benefits. Well, it's basically a lot of the work we're doing within podiatry now for tissues that don't recover in the normal 6 to 8 week period. What we're doing now is whacking the heck out of them with shockwave. Well, basically it's injuring it again. And so I think a lot of these things we're doing, like fasting, it's injuring your body.
Yeah.
Cold showers, it's injuring your body. Holding your breath, it's, a lot of these things we're injuring it because our body is naturally perfect.
Yeah, it's naturally always trying to recover. Yeah. That's interesting.
Tony, now talk a little bit about, like, how did you get into shoes? Like, you're an English major. How did you get into shoes and things like that? So if anyone doesn't know, Tony, you started, or you still have, Topo, right?
Yes, I started a shoe company called Topo Athletic, or we just call it Topo a lot of times, probably 10 years ago, almost, maybe a little less than that. So we make shoes for running, hiking, trail running, walking. Yeah, exactly. So the whole concept behind Topo is a lot of it's in the fit. I've been in the footwear industry for a long time, over 30 years, and learned a lot about how to make shoes that are healthy and fit well. So all of our shoes have a really roomy toe box, so lots of room for your toes to spread and splay naturally, which, as you know, is so important for a variety of things. It's just a more natural way to be, but it's also better for balance, agility, a sense of control, comfort. But I don't like just a wide fitting sloppy shoe. So they fit snug in the waist, secure in the heel. So the shoe still feels like an extension of your body, even though there's all this room for the toes to splay naturally. And then everything is built on a low drop platform. And sometimes people think that that means not a lot of cushioning underneath, which is not necessarily the case. We do make some shoes that don't have a lot of cushioning under the foot, but we also do make some that do have more cushioning. What we mean by low drop is that the heel of the foot, if this is the heel and these are the toes, the heel and the forefoot are more or less on a level plane. And so we have a little bit of drop in some shoes. Some shoes have zero drop, but we always try to retain that more neutral plane, which again, we think is really important for stability, and probably improves posture and is a more natural activation through the gait cycle. So, so those are some of the ingredients that we try to incorporate in Topo. Your question, and I think I'll finally get to answer it here now, is how did I kind of get into this world? So I was a runner. I grew up in Colorado, ran track and cross country at University of Tulsa in Oklahoma. And after I graduated, I wanted to move to an area where there were better runners to train with. And so I moved to the Boston area. It was one of the places back in those days. There was this guy named Bill Rogers, who was, pretty fast, won New York and Boston 4 times each. And there were a lot of great runners in this area. So there were good people to train with and work out with. I was, probably never going to be a world-class runner. So I also needed to find a job, especially back then, amateur athletics, you couldn't really make a living at it. And so like a lot of runners, I kind of ended up in the shoe industry. And Bill Rogers, believe it or not, was a spokesperson for this little casual shoe company called Rockport. And so that's where I started my career, was at the Rockport company. And I had great mentors, great teachers, and kind of coming up through the brown shoe, as they would call it, versus athletic shoe side, I learned a lot about craftsmanship and shoe construction and all of these different, kind of older techniques in shoe assembly and manufacturing. And Rockport was a brand that was known as, making very comfortable shoes and had some really great techniques and methods for doing that. So it was a good foundation for my, starting out. And I was there for 15 years, ended up running all the product and marketing eventually. And then, as some people know, I went from there to Vibram, or some people say Vibram, which is a company that makes sole platforms for a lot of different shoe companies. And so I ran the US company there. And then we also launched our own finished product called Five Fingers, which a lot of people may remember was the shoe with the 5 toes. And I liked that concept as a way to be able to train to strengthen the muscles in the feet, lower legs. In some ways, it probably got a little carried away with, people who overdid it, running long distances in those shoes that probably weren't prepared to. But the concept of using your body in a natural way is still a really relevant concept. And so that was kind of my foundation. I worked there for 11 years, I guess. So that was my foundation before starting Topo.
Wow. And one thing I didn't know, you were probably in Vibram when I started noticing this. Like every single shoe, not Vibram shoes, had the Vibram sole. And I'm thinking, what a great, it's kind of like everyone buys the same zippers from from one company, and everyone, why not? If you're the best sole producer, sell soles to everyone. You don't need to make the shoe. You can just make the sole.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, you say that today, but actually when I started at the US company, we actually only had 4 customers. So the folks in the company did a great job of expanding the brand. And we used to design and create platforms for a lot of different people, everything from, at one point, I think we had 6 programs in Nike, and Nike has, enough resources they certainly, didn't need to have Vibram, but they wanted to use our approach and our ideas. And so everything from that to even little startup companies, we worked with a wide range of companies. So it was really a fun, interesting education to see how all these different companies worked as a component supplier.
Now, I'm just, all I can think of is China. Like, was this before Rockport? Was this American made, or did you have to fly to other countries to work on this? Like, how did that work?
when I started my career at Rockport did actually manufacture in 2 factories in the US, but most of our manufacturing at that time was in Europe. And so we were making shoes in Portugal, would have been a popular place for us to make shoes. In what was formerly Yugoslavia, we made them up in Slovenia and Croatia, those regions of the world. We made shoes in Italy, of course, and a lot of our suppliers were in Italy, so that the last maker, all shoes are made on a last, which is a shape, and there's a lot that goes into creating that shape. So our last makers were Italian, a lot of our material suppliers were Italian. And so I spent a lot of time in Europe. Actually, that was a good learning case for me. China didn't come along probably until, well, we started to make shoes in Asia in the early 90s. And then by, I would say, the late 90s, China was starting to come on board as a more important place for people to go make footwear. But they didn't have the level of sophistication then that they do today, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, if we're looking 10 years from now, where do you see the future of, I know where I see the future of footwear. Where do you see it? Does it involve any new technology, scanning, visualized, personalized? Tony's got his shoe, I got my shoe.
I mean, I would really love to make shoes closer to the source. You know, I feel like we went through this era where, you know, we go to the countries where, and footwear is one of those businesses where there's a lot of handwork, a lot of assembly, a lot of labor, manual labor. So you tend to go to places where the costs of labor are a little lower. That's not even necessarily the case in southern China anymore, you know, where a lot of footwear is made. So there's a lot of robotic stuff involved now too. But I would love to see shoes made more close to the source, so we didn't spend as much energy and time shipping product across the ocean and all of that. I mean, that's a long-term goal. Obviously, we're a young company. We don't have the resources. It's really hard to not only build a shoe factory, but have all the suppliers here, you know, a supply network that can help you to have all the ingredients that you need to be able to assemble it.
Yeah. And in terms of Topo specifically, where do you see the future? Is it just, because what is it, you know, better than I, like a shoe? Is it just different brands and different names and colors every year? Is that what it is? Or is there research technology? How do you guys determine what's next?
Yeah, so there is a lot of research and there is a lot of technology, but there's also, I think one of the overlooked things in footwear today probably is just craftsmanship. So there's a lot of conversation about different, for example, in running shoes, there's a lot of conversation about different midsole foams. The midsole is that middle part of the sole between the outsole and the upper. And there are different foams that people have developed and used that, you know, are not only lightweight, but more resilient. Use it in different ways so that it might hold up longer, last longer, increase the longevity of the product. A lot of different things you can do. But those things are great, and technology is really important. But there's also, I think, an aspect of craftsmanship that is probably underutilized, and it's important for a company like us to continue to do that so that those techniques or construction methods are passed on, you know, from one generation to the next. Because nothing is more important really than how your shoe fits, how it fits you. And Topo isn't going to be the right fit shoe for everybody, but for the type of feet that we know and the audience of consumers we serve, you know, we really try to study that and make sure that we deliver the best possible fit and level of adjustment to the fit so that that person gets a great experience.
Yeah.
And then you still have all the, you know, technology and some of the other things that keep it light, keep it resilient, have it last longer. All of those things are equally important.
Yeah, you know, I think it's funny as podiatrists, you know, we talk about shoes every single day. And you know, I think I talk about foam rolling, loosening, you know, things like that in shoes more than I talk about anything else. And it's just,
yeah.
And we do the test. We take out the sock liner on my Topo and I stand on it and I say, okay, and I compare it to their shoe that they come in on. And I say, do you see why your foot hurts? Like,
yeah,
real simple. So I know on your website, I was looking at it, And there's a lot of runners that, I don't know if you endorse them or they send kind of their experience or things like that. Is it because it's a Topo, or is it, a lot of these runners that do it, do they like the extra width? What do they like about it? I think it's the width.
Yeah. So, I would say that our shoes are very functionally driven. So the designs are probably more functionally driven. We still try to, sometimes, there's a trade-off between making something super functional and making it attractive. A slimmer last or a slimmer look is something that probably appeals to people by nature a little bit more. So how do you figure out that trade-off, or how do you try and make a shoe so that it still has the function that you're looking for, but maybe has the look that can still draw that consumer in? Because ultimately, people probably have some vanity. I know I do too. We want things that work, but we also want things that appeal to our aesthetic sensibility.
Yeah.
And so that's often a trade-off that we make, but for us, function is always going to come first. So fit is really an important ingredient in that function. If the shoe doesn't fit, doesn't perform properly to begin with, nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart from some of our competitors.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I appreciate your time. I think we've kind of done the whole gamut. We kind of talked about health and wellness, and then now we're talking a little bit more about the shoe. And as we just conclude, in your life and with running, people that, let's say they're watching, the shoe doesn't make the runner. Okay. You have to get out and run. How important do you think is having like mentor or central mass striders, or having a running group or other types of things like that, or to make change in life, to do that?
So such a great question. And Don, it kind of reminds me of the other part of the question, which is to say that I don't think, somebody shouldn't look at a shoe as something that's going to fix your problem. You kind of mentioned before about foam rolling, stretching, increasing mobility, addressing strength imbalances. It's really in your body. I mean, we try to make shoes that allow the body to work in a natural way, but it's up to the individual to do things that can make their body be able to perform, their whole life. We're all just trying to stay as healthy as we can our whole lives. The second part of your question, though, I think it's really important to have a network of people to be able to be with and share stories with. Human beings are social animals, and I think we gain from that experience of, being with others, sharing stories with others, being inspired by others. All those things are really important. And even though I come out of a competitive background a little bit more, that changed a lot for me, that I just want to be able to stay healthy, enjoying my life, whether that means I'm walking or running or cycling or, just doing things that make me feel better. And I know if I can do some exercise every day, I'm probably going to feel better and be healthier.
That's great. Well, Tony, thank you so much. What's the website if people want to learn more about the Topo? Is it Topo Athletics?
Yeah, it's Topo Athletic. So anybody can just visit Topo Athletic, do a quick Google search. It's Topo. So my name is Tony Post. It's the first two letters of my first and last name. So that's how you get Topo. It was a kind of a nickname I had in college too. So
great. Well, Tony, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You bet, Don. Great to visit with you. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thank you for watching Healthy Living. You're going to find a few links here I'd like you to click. One is to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Also, you can learn more. There are some videos here you can see.